Hello YouTube. Today we'll be playing
Kona.
Kona. Enjoy.
Carl Faubert sought
Buddy
information
whipping in the
from
Chevy.
That is to say that ever since he returned from Korea, after having served with the armed forces, he had been working as a private investigator in Montreal. William Hamilton, a rich industrialist, had gotten in touch with him regarding a simple vandalism issue. Nothing to write home about. Not worth hiring a private eye either, just so he can drive
Don't
for
smoke, kids.
hours on rough roads. But that's how it had always been. The client pays, Carl gets it done. They had set up to meet at the general store, his client's business. Well, actually, the entire village had William Hamilton's name written all over it.
Skirt, skirt.
When the roads were bad, muddy, or snowed in, it was customary around these parts to close them off. But it was also customary to ignore those signs entirely and drive there anyway.
How often does a road need to be closed to require 2 picnic tables at its gate? So you can sprint. That's nice right there. I got a whip, and they might as well let me grab the whole toolbox.
Carl, ever diligent in his work, always carried his log on him, in which he scribbled down thoughts and leads alike during the course of his investigations.
Consumables. They got cigarettes on the consumables. That's tough.
Hamilton never mentioned a road-blocking barrier. Why was it needed here in the back of Beyond? That would, however, be a mystery for another day. Carl had waited long enough for someone to come and raise it. Still not a soul in sight. There was no point in waiting any longer. Carl had to figure this one out by himself. Hamilton is waiting for Carl in the general store. It was time for him to get down to business.
Achievement. It will be good.
William Hamilton enjoyed a lavish country house built in the very heart of the northern forests, not too far from here. The local populace was divided when it came to the affluent man. Some saw a wealthy philanthropist dedicated to improving the region's economy. Others an aging Englishman who would do anything to further his fortunes. And those ones hated him enough. To go on about scheming against him. Hamilton had recently acquired a few local businesses, but the last straw was the reopening of a mine, which gave rise to a wave of protests and threats from the Cree people. Given these circumstances, Carl reckoned that a good number of people must be feeling compelled to oppose Hamilton in one way or another. So far, only the industrialist's house had been a target, but soon enough, Carl thought, the target would become the man himself.
Whoa! They didn't let me control. I lost control. Tough. A few hours later.
Carl needed to get out of there. The cold and the pain required urgent care.
Not a bad intro. Light chain. Dang, I wonder if Buddy died.
It was so cold. Already Carl did not feel his toes anymore. The driver had taken off. It was
He's
still
alright.
best to check it out and leave nothing to chance. Carl needed help. This deep in the country, his last hope was to find an abandoned garage or a farm by the roadside. His life depended on it.
I'm going to Watchtower first. She was up there.
Even better than he had hoped. Carl Faubert had succeeded once more and was now on his way to new adventures.
Don't like that.
The flames won't grow without some help. Other materials were required.
So I get to save the game at fires. Oh, I should have started one in the house. The other one's smarter. Toy. So just get out of here. You got the change for the car. Grab a piece of log. Right back.
Spread out on a few acres of untouched forest, bellowing caribou, everlasting snow, and undefiled lakes. The Manistan region was no tourist hub. It was said to have been populated for millennia by Cree people, and ever since the industrial era, by the metal mining industry. The truck was running on fumes. Good thing that the general store was close by.
Awkward place to put a loading screen.
A milkman had to drive by every week to fill the bottles. The fresh milk indicated a recent visit. Something fell to the bottom of the box.
Is that not a key in there? Oh, no, that's not a key. Oh, snap.
Carl had no trouble recognizing his employer. He had been killed. There was no need to be a detective to figure that out. But only a detective could have noticed that the killer had to have been very close, that the fatal blow had been given before the victim even realized. Carl felt a chill down his spine
bad, man.
and had a terrifying realization. If Hamilton was dead, then who was going to pay him? An explosion suddenly occurred outside.
You want me to go outside and check it? Check this cash register first. Hold on. That explosion will be out. That's a phone.
The snowstorm pummeled everything in its path. Carl was not surprised when he heard no tone. Carl knew that Gilles Lachance was in charge of the general store. That made him one of Hamilton's employees. A very angry employee, as Carl could plainly see.
What's that newspaper? They about to tell me a code.
What could be inside that envelope? Carl was taken aback. He knew this address. It was said to be the address of the P.O. box for the Canadian Secret Service.
Garage key. Duct tape. Matches. Customer credit.
According to that log, it seemed like the whole village owed some money to the general store. Carl was far more interested in the bunch of nearby addresses he had just gotten his hands on, though.
No thanks. I prefer cold beer. So what is that? Make it. what that is. Ate too many of these in Korea.
The note explained that the garage and the store couldn't be supplied with electricity at the same time.
Might as well just turn the garage on.
The note explained that the garage and the store
there must have been a
couldn't be
generator that blew
supplied
up
with
outside.
electricity at the same time.
Alright, I'm gonna check that out.
A radiator without power is as good as a wood stove without logs. The pumps wouldn't surrender their divine nectar so easily. In all likelihood, they had to be switched on from inside the store. Carl was used to strange phenomena, but a chunk of ice like this, as if an iceberg came out of the ground, that was a first. Carl was no electrician, but he could identify a wiring problem when he saw one.
So let's save the game. Flashlight. So I have pliers. I already picked up tape from the store. I can fix the electricity problem. Turn that off.
Staring intently at the controls won't be enough to make that lift budge. The poor thing was out of power.
Okay, so every time I walk towards the fire, it saves. That's good enough. Fixtures generating. Alright, get started. Let's go first. I might as well just do the garage first.
The note explained that the garage and the store couldn't be supplied with electricity at the same time. At long last, the crowbar was within Carl's grasp. Surely it would come in handy at some point.
Pick up a log later. Can I pick up multiple logs? Man, I'll get like 3. I'll put it in the truck.
A milkman had to drive by every week to fill the bottles. The fresh milk indicated a recent visit. Jumping from that height was akin to tempting death. Perhaps that man on the snowmobile had seen enough of this world already. A nice picture of the Magasin Lachance store, seemingly taken the day it was first opened. It feels frozen in time, from an era long forgotten. Amateur hunters showing some pride at having killed a nice pelted beast. With men like this roaming the area, wolves would become extinct within 10 years, Carl thought.
Fucking clock.
Carl knew straight away where to find the infuriated Gilles Lachance. Any good investigation would have to start there.
So it wasn't a code to open it. Oh wow, that's tough.
The murder weapon.
A revolver. save real quick. Yeah. Get in the truck. We're gonna call this episode 1.